Yeah, both my parents lived independently in their own home in a bungalow in Billinge. They were well looked after. They had me, you know, looking after them and doing the shopping, prescriptions, little jobs for them. So they was great, really. All the bungalow was adapted to their needs. It was their own bungalow, which they'd bought, and they'd lived there nearly 40 years. They had a lovely community there with neighbours, and they had like a little village bus what used to take them into town, and they used to go on the bus daily. So then lockdown came, that was March 2020, and things just changed dramatically. My dad's mental health declined significantly. He wasn't remembering anything, and he'd do like bizarre little things. My mum's mental health had declined as well, and obviously we couldn't go in. She wouldn't let anyone in because she was scared, really. And with the news saying about the virus, my mum was that paranoid. She shut the windows, thinking the virus had come in, even though it was like glorious sunshine and 20 degrees outside. It was so terrifying, and it was awful to see that this had got a grip on my parents. You know, I could see the decline going. She'd give me a shopping list sort of through the door quickly, and I'd pick it up. So that was March. It carried on. So it took a big toll on my mum. So in June, my mum got pneumonia. She'd got run down, basically, and she had to go in hospital for 5 days. We treated at Wisdom for pneumonia, and low sodium, low potassium, which affected her. She ended up with delirium, which wasn't nice. Then Dad, we couldn't leave him on his own. He was prone to falls and his dementia. He was bad then. So what I did, I put a single bed in the spare room, because they only had one bedroom with a bed in. So I thought, I'm going to take care of him till we get proper care packages in place. So that happened, and then July, then my mum's older daughter took control of my parents and decided she was taking care of them. She'd kept me out of the way with police allegations, didn't really know what was going on. So I got a solicitor to try and safeguard my parents, because I had suspicions that they were being exploited for money, which came true. That wills had been changed for my parents, even though Dad was in dementia, Mum was in delirium. I was kept away 9 months, and by the time I got in on my own sort of steam, I just thought, I've got to get in before anything happens to my parents, if they die or anything. They had no caring, and my stepsister was still working full-time as an estate agent. So by the time I got in, literally my parents were left for dead, and the money had been took, approximately £90,000. She'd emptied the bank accounts and built an extension on the back of her home, telling authorities that she was caring for my parents, which they lasted in her home for 3 weeks, and then she'd put them back in their own home. So I was trying to piece together what had gone on. And my mum was ill. She'd lost over 1.5 stone in weight. She was limping, so she was left with a broken hip from previous surgery the year before. So I had to get her hip surgery done. So by this time, I thought, I've literally on my own trying to take care of 2 vulnerable adults. My mum's got to go in hospital, have this surgery done, because she's in agony walking and limping. I ended up paying privates for a private consultation, which showed that the femur plate, which was placed to the hip, had come away, and that they had to have that repaired. So I contacted social services, who had been terrible, really, in safeguarding my parents previously, but I had no choice then, and asked could they find a suitable respite for Dad. So Dad had gone into respite, and conveniently it was next door to Wiston Hospital, where my mum was awaiting a surgery. So Dad had gone in, and they told me, you can't see your Dad, leave it for a week, let him settle down and give him chance to acclimatise here, which he did. Dad had had a little mobile I bought him, and he could ring me, I could ring him. So I was happy with that. So day 8 I went and seen Dad outside the care home in like a little garage set up, and Dad was unhappy, but he looked well cared for, but he was unhappy being there. He's saying, when am I coming home? I want to come home. So I said, Dad, not long, we have to wait for Mum. She's in hospital and she's having a new hip done. So I left it like that, and then the very next day I got a phone call about 11 o'clock at night. I remember it was a Friday night, and I just thought, oh my God, my dad's ringing me. So he was in distress saying, Jill, they've done something to me. They've done something. I said, Dad, what's going on? It's 11 o'clock at night. And my dad was very routine. He was a bit OCD, really. He'd always get in bed before 10 o'clock round that time. So anyway, the carer took the phone off me and she said, your dad's just confused. He's all right, he's very confused. So I said, well, to be honest, he sounds distressed. I'm really worried about him. So she said, don't worry, he's confused. All right then, good night. And I wasn't happy, I was restless all that night. I told my husband I'm worried about my dad. I said, that's not right, him phoning me 11 o'clock at night saying they've done something to him. And they've even took him in a lift. I mean, what, they're taking him in a lift for? 11 o'clock at night. So I left it, I tried and get to sleep, but I couldn't. And then it was like 6:30, I got a call from the care home saying, we've had to call the ambulance for your dad. So I just thought he'd had a fall. My dad was prone to falls. So anyway, they said he's breathlessness and wheezy. So I said, have you given him his inhalers? Dad takes inhalers. So they said, well, we're going into hospital, he'll be going to Whiston. So anyway, what I did, I left it a few hours, made my way to Whiston, and then when I got there, I just got the shock of my life. I took my mobile phone out and took a photograph of Dad, which was this picture, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that he's completely dehydrated out. His skin's parched, his lips are cracked, he had no dentures, no hearing aid, no glasses. And he couldn't even remember anything being in the care home, so his memory had been wiped clean. He had no memory of the care home. So I was like, oh my God. So I got him dehydrated straight away, got bottled waters for him and left him drinking water. Then I rang the care home saying I'm coming back to collect things for Dad and that he will not be returning to this care home at the state that you've left him in. I was totally appalled at how they'd left him and let him get into that state. It was deliberately dehydration. My dad could pick a drink up and drink. He wasn't in advanced dementia or anything. So anyway, I collected all Dad's things, his hearing aid, glasses and his dentures so he could eat. And Dad was left in A&E. So I stayed all day till early evening visiting both parents. Mum was awaiting her hip replacement, which had got cancelled twice. And I was thinking, please don't cancel the third time, 3 week. And Mum's being hoisted. She's getting very confused because she's a deaf lady and a lip reader, and people were still wearing face coverings. So I visited Dad. I made sure he was all right, put a blanket over him, took photos of him. He had his glasses, he had a buzzer which he could access and his fluids, and left him comfortable, got him an extra pillow, and said I'd see him tomorrow. They told me that Dad was being treated for aspiration pneumonia. It could be COPD exasperated by dementia. None of it really made sense to me, to be honest. I don't really think they was treating him for anything. So I am an ex-auxiliary nurse and an ex-tetraplegic nurse, and I do know the basics. So there was no nebulizers for Dad, there was no oxygen for Dad, there was no IV drips for Dad, and he wasn't monitored for any observations. He was just left in a bed, which struck me, and I thought, why aren't they really treating him in A&E, ready to go to a ward? So anyway, I left him and I come home, I was still worried about Dad, so I rang Whiston Hospital. I got through to the receptionist who told me Dad was still in A&E. So I thought, oh my God, it's like 18 and a half hours and he's still in A&E and not on a ward. So I was still worried about him, thinking, is he getting fluids? I'd not seen him then since 7 o'clock. So I decided drive to Whiston, which is a bit of a drive from here. So I drove up, went on the unit, and I was told by an auxiliary nurse, your dad's not here. So I said, all right, they've told me that he's still on the unit on reception. can you find out where he is? So this auxiliary nurse, healthcare professional, just walked off and in a huff, she said, well, I'll find out for you. So anyway, I just remembered my dad was in cubicle 17. So I walked back through a bit of a maze through E&E and I found cubicle 17, but the door was shut. I thought, I bet there's another patient in there. I better knock and just peep through. So anyway, I've knocked and opened the door slightly. And lo and behold, I found my dad flat on his back, hanging out the bed, and the bed had collapsed, the trolley. And he was crying for help, shouting. So the table had been moved, he couldn't access the buzzer. His other table had been moved so he couldn't access any fluids. I lifted Dad up and he knew who I was straight away. He said, for God's sake, get me out of here, please get me out of here. I said, Dad, I am. God, like, so I was like just shot lifting him up. So I thought, right, I'm getting him home. They're not treating him. There's no nebulisers up. There's nothing for him. No oxygen. His medication's not even been touched in blister packs. So I just got Dad in a wheelchair, took him out to Whiston, and on the car park, got him in, was putting Dad in the car, and 2 nurses come on the car park saying, do you know we're going to call the police on you? So I said, well, do that, because I'm calling the police on you for willful neglect, leaving my dad at risk. I said, I'm taking him out of danger and for his own welfare. He could have broke his hip or his leg and falling out of that bed. So anyway, I took Dad home, got him hydrated a bit, put him in his pyjamas, and he was happy and content. You could tell with his face, you know, he was relieved. Then the next day I got a phone call from social services at Whiston. There's a safeguarding in against you, that you've took your dad home. So I said, I've took my dad home out of danger and he was at risk. I've got photographs to prove it. That my dad was hanging out of bed crying for help, and they'd removed the buzzer from him and fluids. So I've took my dad out for his own welfare. So anyway, I left her at that, and then the next 3 days I had the police banging on the door, frailty nurses, social services, frailty doctors from Whiston. I wouldn't open the door because I thought, I'm not letting my dad go back there. I'd already got Dad antibiotics via 111. I'd started him on a course of antibiotics. His urine was like a thick treacle, dark colour. He was completely dehydrated out, trying to hydrate him back to normal. So 3 days his lungs were just filled with fluid, wouldn't go away. So I suspect that at the care home Treetops had actually administered something to Dad that Friday evening to start this domino effect on. So 3 days had gone, and I just thought, if Dad passes away in my care, it's not going to look good. And they might think that I'm denying Dad treatment, which I wasn't. So I thought, I made a conscious decision then not to take Dad to Whiston, but Wigan Infirmary. So I took my dad to Wigan Infirmary there. And they were brilliant at A&E. They treated him with respect, dignity. They gave him drinks, nebulisers. They really cared for him. And it was as though, oh, at last they're going to care for Dad. You know, I'd let my guard down. So anyway, they admitted Dad on the ward, and I'd gone to see Dad the next day. They said they were treating him for dehydration and pneumonia. So when I was there, I'd gone through the side notes and seen that they put a DNR on Dad. So I thought, how dare you? And they put my name as though I've discussed a DNR, which he hadn't, and a dolls, and a safeguarding against me. He was trying to protect my dad. So I took hold of the DNR, scrunched it up, and I put it in my pocket. I thought, how very dare you? That I haven't discussed nothing, and there's no way my dad is at this stage in life, end of life. So anyway, it went on in the hospital. They'd moved him on a ward, and there was other people you could see who was at end of life. And I just thought, they're going to do the same with my dad. I had strong suspicions. So one day I'd gone in and my dad's eyes were rolling round. So I asked the nurse, what have you done to Dad? What have you given him? She said, nothing, not give you. I said, please, you have given him something. I can tell looking at him. And I said, can I have a look at that chart? So it was on a digital chart. And she said, we've only given him a little bit of lorazepam. And I went, lorazepam? I said, do you know how strong lorazepam is? And it causes chaos in the brain. I said, my dad's gone completely gaga. I said, that's not my dad. You shouldn't be giving him drugs like that. Why have you given him these drugs? She said, he's trying to climb out of bed. I said, he's trying to escape because he wants to come home. He's begging to come home. So I thought, all right, this is it now. I'm going to have to get a solicitor. So I got a solicitor who said they'd help. They took £3,000 off me, which really I didn't have. Put that on a credit card, and they'd said they'd start the ball rolling because the dolls was an illegal dolls, and obviously safeguarding against me. He was trying to protect him. And I never really seen many emails what were sent, but they come to it where they were having a best interest meeting now. So Dad was 10 weeks trapped in a bed. He was drugged up on lorazepam. He was nil by mouth, I found out, 9 days. My mum had to sign a form, feed at risk, so they could stop him choking, which he didn't believe. One of the nurses there told me, get your dad home and just get him on baby food, you need to get him out. So it's as though she knew they were going to do something to him. So anyway, 10 weeks had gone. They had the best interest meeting, saying Dad needed hoisting, 2 to transfer, 24-hour care. He's in advanced stages of dementia now. So this was around November 2021. And that he needed a care home. So the social worker had sent me a list of care homes, which they did. They had a little choice. And I just looked at the ones which were good. I didn't really know much about care homes, and I didn't really know how bad they could be. I never really thought about it. So anyway, we thought, we'll get my dad, once he's got a bit of weight back on him, because he'd lost half of his body weight being in hospital. So he entered the care home, and then it was, we'd informed the care home that LPAs had been fraudulently obtained by this stepsister, and to be aware of this. They wasn't interested, and I was told by the care home manager, we're not interested in your family politics. So they was going with the LPA holders' decisions on Dad's detainment in the care home. So we got in touch with the solicitor, who said apply for a court of protection and they'll get the attorneys removed because they wasn't acting in the best interest of your dad. So we waited. It was nearly over a year before the court of protection come through. So Dad was in the care home then, November 2021. By December the 26th, I got an email saying that they're in COVID lockdown till February. So I thought, oh my God, it's going to break my mum. My mum had been married to my dad 65 years. They were devoted as a couple. They'd never been separated before. And obviously the hospital admission the year before for a month, it took a big toll on my mum. So I took my mum to Blackpool, you know, for a weekend break, for like turkey and tinsel at one of the big hotels, trying to, you know, soften the blow, not seeing Dad. So anyway, we kept ringing up, is Dad all right? Yeah, he's fine, and different things, but he'd had several falls, even though he's supposed to be hoisted. I don't know how he kept falling, if he was hoisted and 2 to transfer. So anyway, that was it. He was back in hospital again with severe dehydration, which caused a kidney injury. He was back at Whiston, spent 10 days there, where I could visit Dad every day, anytime. They had no COVID restrictions on. So I said, I'm that concerned about my dad going back to the care home. Can you transfer him back into his own home? They said, we can't. He's got to go back to the care home as a step-down bed, and they'll assess Dad. So he went back to the care home, and things just went from bad to worse. They put restrictions in, half an hour visiting on a weekly basis by appointments only. And it was either Friday or a Saturday. It was first come, first served basis. So this even broke, my mum being away from her husband. So it just going on and on. So in the June, Mum was just giving up then. The police had not done anything about the fraud, which had happened on their accounts. 90,000 had been took. Wills had been changed. But at that time, we didn't know a will had been changed for Dad. Mum was adamant there was no will in place because Dad had dementia and he couldn't make a will. So anyway, sadly, my mum died on the 5th of June 2022. So I went to the care home saying, can I take Dad to Mum's funeral? They'd been devoted to each other, 65 years. I'll pay for, I even emailed them, I'll pay for 2 carers, I'll pay for transport for the hour for at the funeral's only half an hour at Mum's getting cremated. And I was told, no, my dad's not well enough. And he looked all right the night before. He's not well enough, and that you can streamline it on a video. I thought, that is awful. How can my dad understand that, having dementia? And it would have been a good opportunity for Dad to meet other relatives who he'd been isolated from. So anyway, Mum died, we had a funeral. None of the sisters came. That was my mum's last wishes. And my mum was cremated. I've got her ashes here. So anyway, I carried on visiting Dad, and was still waiting for the court of protection to come up. I never used to go to the care home on my own. I didn't trust him. I always had a witness with me, which was either my son, my son's partner, or my best friend. Like I said, I was never alone. So anyway, I'd gone 1 September, the beginning, and the curtains were closed. It was a red hot day. Dad was in bed, and they said, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be in here. We've got COVID on the ward, on the unit. So I said, oh, well, I've never been told, and I've already kissed Dad, so doesn't matter, really. No, you'll have to leave. So anyway, we were sort of thrown out the care home. That was me and my friend and my late brother's partner. So anyway, I had my suspicions then they're doing something to Dad, having him in bed, and he looked drugged up. The curtains were shut. It was like early evening, tea time. So anyway, I went back again to see Dad, and his head was raised up against the, you can see on these pictures, because I was so shocked. I took a picture. There was no bed rails up on Dad where his head was, and he was lay in a fetal position, in pain. He couldn't retract his legs, and I was so shocked. So I just had suspicions that they're going to put Dad on end of life. So this was September. I was told they put Dad on end of life October. October the 28th, they had the court of protection brought forward by 1 week. And I was waiting for that. So in the meantime, the care home emailed me saying you're banned from visiting your dad. So I said, you know what you're doing is illegal, banning me from seeing my dad. They said it's not up to us, it's the LPA's decision. So I said, but you do know that LPA holder has fraudulently obtained these documents. There's nothing we can do. So anyway, I stayed away from Dad for 5 weeks. So in the 5 week, unbeknown to me, but I had my suspicions, Dad was lay there dying on his last days. I don't know to this day if Dad had anybody holding his hand when he died or anything. So Friday, I think it was the 28th of October, we had the court of protection hearing. I shouldn't have been there, but I went along just to see that they'd removed the attorneys, and I could sort of give my dad a cremation and put his ashes with my mum, which is what he's wanted, and his last wishes. But the judge said that because Dad is on end of life doesn't mean death is imminent, and there's no such thing as being euthanised in the UK. It's illegal, and that I had no rights bringing the court date forward by 1 week, that he's got more pressing things to consider, and that I will be charged for all the court hearings and loss of earnings, and that a gagging order's placed on me that I won't be able to put any photographs up of Dad on social media, which I did, but they were non-defamatory and they were protecting my dad's identity and mine. But obviously they said that I'd sort of broken these rules, which I hadn't. So anyway, predictably, after that day, that was on the Friday, on the Sunday evening I got a call saying you can come and see your dad. The visiting ban has been lifted and you can visit Dad because he might not remember you, but your dad is effectively dying. So I told the social worker that I don't want to see your dad. I was shocked at seeing him 5 weeks previous, and I don't want to see a skeleton in a bed and have those bad memories of my dad in my mind. So Monday morning I got a phone call, 1st of November 2022, nearly exactly a year after Dad being detained illegally in a care home, that Dad had passed away about 7:30. So that was it then. So anyway, they wouldn't let me know when the funeral was. They wouldn't let me know any details. So Dad had found out on the day he was buried in a secret location, which was against his wishes. They told no relatives, and my dad's only remaining sister, she didn't even go to the funeral, and my mum's sister wasn't told. So it was just effectively my stepsister and all her friends who didn't know my dad had attended this funeral, and the care home manager. So I managed on the day, I pretended I was a florist, that I was delivering flowers, and I found out the very last minute Dad's burial was, and I turned up with Dad's neighbours and obviously his grandson, my son, my husband, and it was just a farce of a funeral. They put all pictures up of Dad from the 1970s as though they were like loving, caring family of my dad, and it was just shocking. It was just, I couldn't believe they buried him. And then the other sister died, I think it was about 5 weeks later, and they buried her body on top of my dad. I was like, oh my God. And then they'd had this carving done as a stone and put my mum's name on it as though she was buried in the ground as well, which, I mean, my mum's ashes are here at home with me. It's just been horrendous. I've dealt with the police, social services, the abuse and exploitation my mum and dad suffered has all been basically covered up. Merseyside police, lost my mum's police taped interview, which she did. She had full mental capacity, and she said she wanted her daughter prosecuting for taking all her savings and money. I mean, Mum didn't even have enough money for bury herself. My son had to get money on a credit card to bury my mum. It was shocking. So I lost my brother in 2020, and then my mum, dad, and then my sister, who'd actually gone in with all this fraud. So it's left me now dealing with contentious probates because a will has been produced for my dad, and this will had been my dad's third will. I mean, who makes 3 wills? So in this will he's written my late brother out, who's his biological only son, and he's written me out, his firstborn daughter, who he was extremely close to, in a close relationship. So it's left this bitter taste now. So I'm 5 years on dealing with everything, and 3, yeah, so that's where I'm up to now. I've got a solicitor who's dealing with the probate. I've got an empty property where my parents lived. I'm maintaining that, insuring it. The stepsister is contesting my mum's will, saying that I've influenced her and coerced her, even though Mum had full capacity. She made the will in private with the solicitor and a paralegal. It was all done privately. She'd give her reasons why she'd written a will, because of fraud and theft, which her 2 daughters had committed against her. And I've just got this web of deceit, just weaving through it all. I'm not getting any further on with anything. So it's left me now where I've got a forensic investigator who's on board, and she's going to put everything in chronological order, because this was a serious domestic abuse case. It was coercive and control that my parents suffered under the care of the oldest daughter for monetary gain. She'd actually detained my dad with the fraudulent LPAs in a care home against our wishes, and she did that for spite me mum, because my mum had reported her to the police. So everything's just been ongoing. So I'm just hoping that once this document's been done with the forensic investigator, we're going to present it back to Merseyside Police, and I'm just praying that they'll reopen and reinvestigate everything, because we have that much evidence. What's happened, locks changed, BT numbers were changed, the Royal Mail was redirected to her home, wills were changed, LPAs were changed, large amounts of cash were removed out of my parents' accounts. It's all there, all in evidence and chronological order. And during COVID lockdown has gave like a brilliant terrain to commit this crime, because no one was allowed in my parents' home. They couldn't really, no one could get at my parents or see what was going on with the welfare. So it was like a brilliant cover for her. I don't know, I know the detective said that elder abuse had skyrocketed through COVID lockdown and domestic abuse, because obviously it'd given them good cover being locked in a house. No one can come in, no one can go out. So this was a brilliant cover for my stepsister that commit these crimes. Which, like I said, my parents' story has gone in the COVID inquiry. Not that it brings my parents back, but it shows these lockdowns, they're dangerous. They're not just protecting, they're enabling abusers to commit crime, domestic abuse, child abuse, elderly abuse. Everything's done behind locked doors. And like I said, the police don't want to know. They say it's a civil matter, when actually it's not. That's just a cop-out. So I'm hanging on to this sort of strand of hope that we can get this crime reinvestigated with everything what we've got. And I've got mum's recordings on video as testimony as well. Mum never agreed to moving into my stepsister's house. I mean, my stepsister only lives a mile away in a 3-bedroomed house, and my mum and dad's in an adapted bungalow. They've just had a new roof on it, a new driveway, a new walk-in shower done. Why would they want to move into a 3-bedroomed house? And they, you know, why didn't they get a stand or stair lift? Why build an extension? The extension was just adding value to their property, and that's where they've offloaded the money, sort of money laundered the money into their property, and then told local authorities we're taking care of them. We're going to be the main carers. And she's working full-time, my sister. She still does, even though she's aged 72. She works in an estate agent. So it was all like a cop-out. So all the 90,000 was spent doing my sister's house up all high-end, kitchens and furnishings and an extension at the expense of my parents. And then they only stayed there for 3 weeks for Christmas. And then they were dumped back in the bungalow. And then when I'd got in March, the 31st I got in, all the radiators were turned off at the caps. So they were hoping that my mum and dad would get pneumonia and die. The security lights across where the bungalow is, so my mum could see anybody coming up the drive, because she was a deaf lady. She could open the door or peek through the blinds. All the security lights were smashed across the driveway. It was awful, and like there was one light bulb left in the bathroom. So if that bulb would have gone, my mum or dad could have fell into the sink, bashed their head. Anything could have happened. They'd removed care lines so they couldn't call for help. They changed my dad's BT number 3 times in 9 months, I found out. They got rid of carers, window cleaners, newspapers. Anybody who was gonna go near that house, they removed. Cleaners, my mum had cleaners once a week for 2 hours, they'd remove them. So they completely isolated my parents from everyone from the outside. So no one could really get in at my parents, find out what was really going on. I mean, I'd done multiple safeguardings with St Helens Social Services, and everything fell on deaf ears. So anyway, then I got a solicitor who told me to get as many witness statements as you could who knew the dynamics of your family. So I got 10 witness statements. 2 of them were mum's close neighbours, and they all said they'd never seen my mum's other daughter visiting their house. They didn't know who they was. And that was one of my mum's neighbours for 40 years. So what does that tell you? And they'd never seen the 2 granddaughters. They'd only rocked up knowing that my mum had money in the bank from a previous lottery win, and they must have thought, oh, we're going to have that. But we've got one problem, Jill. We need to get her out of the way. So what we'll do And this was the police allegations came in. I mean, I was mortified. It was like I had 4 police allegations and they were knocking on my door, issuing me crime reference numbers like dolly mixtures. I was like, excuse me, can you give me your collar number? I'll write that down, I'll pass it on to my solicitor. So anyway, all these 10 witness statements got drafted up. It took months to do. And it cost me £18,500 in legal fees. It just completely wiped all our savings out. They were sent by courier, couriered in a bundle. They were signed for it, saying, telling social services, acknowledged, and then they were all ignored. So I think social services, when they've seen these witness statements and thought, oh, my God, we've really cocked up here. We've been trying to protect me, like making me out be the abusive daughter, and left them to the abusing family. And they must have looked at these witness statements and gone, holy God, get them in a shredder quick. So we never heard any more of social services. So that was January, they were sent in by courier. And I thought, I'm going to have to get in at my parents before they die. So I used to do drive-bys, and I knew they had no care in place. They were being locked in their own home. So anyway, I just decided March the 31st, the day I need to get in. And I'll take my daughter-in-law with me. So she knocked on the door, and then no answer. Then we went back again, had a coffee here, then went back again. And then my mum opened the door, thinking my daughter-in-law was a nurse. And she said, it's me, Katerina. And she said, oh, Katerina, should have got Jill in the car. Do you want to speak? No, I do. So what they'd been doing, my 2 sisters and all the family, there's 7 of them involved in this fraud, which if they would have got away with £350,000, if I hadn't got in when I did, they would have had the house. They had the £90,000. But anyway, when I'd got in and I'd seen mum was left like a little doll. She'd lost 1.5 stone. She was hobbling about. She looked as though she'd aged 40 years. It was horrible. She just hugged me and cried, and I still get emotional thinking about it, to be honest, because my mum was my best friend. She wasn't just a mum. She was like, I was very, very close to her. We used to do everything together every weekend, shopping, her dome. We used to go for a game of bingo Sunday. We'd have weekends away. I'd have planned 3 weekends away for mum and dad. We always went the same place, Grange over Sands in the Lakes. And then mum had told me that I was telling everyone she had dementia, and I was plotting to put her in a care home. So she said my sister had even got a brochure out the side dresser in the living room. I said, there's the care home she's putting your mum. And she'd even put like a brochure in for it there. I was putting in a care, none of which was true, and that I'd been taking her money. None of that was true. And my mum was just believing. She must have been getting brainwashed every day and believing it. Plus, she was in delirium, my mum. So all her critical thinking had gone, and she had low sodium. She was in heart failure as well. And they just persecuted her, to be honest. Dad didn't know any difference. He was in dementia. He hadn't got a clue what was going on. So mum then, I asked her, I said, are you managing your money and everything? She said, no, we don't get bank statements now because of the virus. We don't get post. I said, I do, mum. And I pulled some letters out of my bag. I said, everybody's getting post, mum. So I thought that she's redirected their post. I bet that's what's happened, which I found out it had. So I said to mum, can you walk on your stick and I'll take you to Lloyd's Bank and we'll go and check your statements. So anyway, she said, yeah. So Katerina looked after my dad, and I took mum to Lloyd's. And she asked for her bank statements and dad's. They wouldn't give dad's to her, but she'd got her own. And she'd gone through her bank statements and she nearly fell off the floor. She had to sit down, they'd emptied her bank accounts. I think there was 700 or 800 left in it. But I mean, there was over like £35,000 just in her account and money in my dad's account. So she took all the pensions and everything. So the girl at the bank said, listen, you need to go to the police, report it now if you're saying you've not agreed to it, and report it to the police. So we went to the local police station, reported it, got a crime reference number. They came out and took a statement off mum, a written statement, which I have a copy of that. And they came out a few months later when they were saying they were investigating, and did a recorded video of Mum with a social worker present, the detective from economic crime, and another guy recording everything on camera, saying that if it does go to court, Mum doesn't have to go because she's classed as a vulnerable adult with their age and being a deaf lady and a lip reader. So anyway, they wrote all the questions down for Mum, and she said, you know, saying, did you authorise these cats? No, I never. So Mum was direct, and I could hear everything from the other side of the room. So no, I never. And then the last question to Mum, well, what do you want from the outcome? Mum said, I want my daughter prosecuting, and I want that money back, what she's stolen from me and her dad. And that was it. So anyway, we never heard anything for weeks. And then the detective comes saying that there's not enough evidence and it's a civil matter. He was embarrassed when he told me, and I went, somebody above you has told you to say that. And he was blush. I said, somebody above you, your station, has told you to close this down because of social services failings. I know what's happened. I said, you've had a strategy meeting, I found out. I said, and because of social services gross failings, you've had to shut this down. And he went, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. He didn't know where to put his face. He said, you can ask for a review. I said, I will be doing. So I asked for a review. That wasn't going to happen. I put all my complaints in against Merseyside Police. That was on deaf ears. I asked for Mum's recording, video recording. They said they haven't got it. So I said, you must have it, because I was present. The machines were set up. I said, can you go back again and look in your records? I said, it's important because I'm dealing now with contentious probate. So anyway, they come back and said they're sorry and they apologise that the equipment on that day was faulty. So, I mean, I seen the green lights and everything all clicking on, and I had a camera up making sure I got everything on record, so my mum didn't get exploited again. So that was it, couldn't get the recording. And like you said, just left now dealing with contentious probate. It's just been horrendous. And Lloyd's Bank, I went in 6 times saying that I'm coming here to tell you I haven't got LPAs, but can you freeze one or the other account of my mum? I said, because I've got suspicions of fraud on their accounts by the daughter. I think she's going to fraud money from him. They were like, nothing you can do, you haven't got LPAs. I was like, it's got nothing to do with LPAs. I am coming to tell you either my mum or dad or both accounts are going to be frauded. I was like, sorry, nothing you can do. It was like I was banging my head in a brick wall. So anyway, the money had gone by then, and there were large transactions, some like £15,000. And then on a daily basis, they were taking £250 from each account, which amounted to £500 from a specific cash point near where my stepsister works. There's no way my mum could or dad could get to those cash points. They'd have to get 2 buses and walk over a main road. Mum was on a walking stick and dad was on a Zimmer frame. And there's no way they'd do large transactions every day like that. My mum was only getting £80 a week basic pension, and my dad was on his pension and a private pension, disability pension. So they wouldn't go taking £250 a day out each, £500 a day. No, and both pensioners, they were like very frugal, my mum and dad. They were like, they had a daily budget every week, and they bought the same thing, you know, same set of things, a pattern with everything. And then the next minute, all these transactions. I was like, oh my God. They'd like £3,600 off Dad's debit card on the 3rd of September and made these transactions to a will company, a card will company in St Helens. And the same day, my dad was presented at Wiston Hospital at A&E with an head injury and confusion. So I've got that in his medical records. So who pays £3,600 for mirror wills? That's extortionate. really extortionate. So this will writers, with, you know, there's a big question mark over her. They're not regulated by any ombudsman. I didn't know this. They're not. She's saying that she was a solicitor. She was actually emailing my mum's GP, and she was emailing social services, and she represented herself as a solicitor. Then when I've checked the Solicitors Regulation Authority, she's not registered as one. And I found out this is what happens. These will writing companies can set shop up anywhere. They don't need any qualifications. They just set themselves up. They're not regulated by any ombudsman, any legal authority like the Solicitors Regular Authority. So everything about this will writing company is dodgy. It's took me 2 years to see Dad's will, a copy of his will. And then I thought, surprise, surprise, no wonder they took 2 years. I looked at it and I thought, that's not my dad's signature. Doesn't represent him. See, I knew my dad. He did all the birthday cards, he did all the writing. I knew all his handwriting. So the Court of Protection did a Zoom call with Dad. My dad really couldn't make it out, obviously on a little phone. And he said, I can tell you Dad's in dementia. This was April 2021, ready for the Court of Protection. And I said, while you're on the phone, can you actually see Dad sign something? Because I don't think Dad can sign his name properly. So anyway, I videoed Dad and he signed his name. And he said, can you screenshot that and send it me in an email, which he did. So this John Omrod from the Court of Protection, he sent a big document to me. And then he put everything in, listed everything that my dad didn't have capacity, revoke an LPA, which he did from me, for no valid reason given. He'd appointed me as attorney. That had been revoked suspiciously. And then the daughter, he'd appointed her in August 2021, and they were registered 2020. And he said, your dad lacked capacity on these. So I've got it actually proof in writing. And we've got Dad's medical records, which were sent to him. He's accessed, and you could see my dad had been in, his memory had been going from the January 2020, yet they'd made another will for him. Just on beggar's belief, really, what goes on. But anyway, Lloyd's were shocking. All my complaints with the financial ombudsman, they were ignored. All my complaints with Wigan Infirmary, they were just brushed aside. Whiston Hospital, complaints with them, they were just brushed aside as well. You were just as though you were up fighting against fog. And I was just being sort of, I felt as though I was being gaslighted all the time, as though it was my fault. And I'm to blame for taking Dad out of hospital. And it was just awful, really. Just like a continuation. And because of the sort of length of time, 5 years, I've not had any closure with anything. I've not had time for grief. My brother, he was also blamed for stealing money from my parents. I've seen that in a document. Now, my brother had a track hearing. He couldn't eat, couldn't drink, he was peg-fed. He had throat cancer. And there's no way, my brother was the honest, good soul. I was very, very close to my brother. So they were making allegations against him and then telling my brother I was stealing from my parents. So I've not had time really grieve my brother or my mum or my dad. Like I said, my dad's buried in a woodland in Greenacres, and mum's ashes are here. They should be both together. So it's left me in, like, you're in a dilemma with everything. I can't put my mum's ashes on top of Dad's grave because her other daughters there who abused her. It's just been an awful, awful thing. It's just left me because I was such an outgoing person. I was up for a laugh with everybody. I was very laid back. Nothing really fazed me or bothered me. Everything used to go over my head. I was very carefree. And it's as though someone's just come in with a wrecking ball and just disturbed my equilibrium. That's all I can say. What it's done, it's just disturbed me. And for knowing that my mum's own flesh and blood And my mum's daughters could do this to her, and her family and her grandchildren. Like, that do such horrid things for money. And it's not just about money as well, it's just the sheer lying and the deceit and the neglect. They left my parents for dead. If I hadn't got in March, I think both parents would have died. And when the police arrived, my stepsister told the police that I was holding my parents hostage in the room, which I found funny. So when they came in, they said mum and dad had a hot meal. They were both being looked after by me. They spoke to my mum in private. I told them dad had dementia. And my mum said, I don't want them coming here. I've just been to the bank and found out they've actually emptied my bank accounts without authorisation. They've been using my card without my knowledge. So my mum said, I don't want them in. So from that day on, March the 31st, my mum never seen her oldest daughter at all. She's never seen her from that day on till she died. And then the other younger daughter, she tried getting in the June of that year, but what I did to stop my mum and dad from being exploited, I got home cameras which were attached to my phone. So if dad had a fall, I could get my husband round while I was at work. So anyway, my phone went off that there was activity. And then when I looked on my phone, my younger sister, who's now deceased, her and her son were in the house and pointing at me and going, you liar, you liar. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to shut work and go. So I was in the doctor's surgery and I just flew home in my car. I got my husband there and my son to go round that my mum was being bullied again and exploited. And it was opening like a big can of worms for my mum. She didn't know where she was really. I got the police there and the police told that they had to move because there was an investigation going on for fraud and that it was above their pay grade. But the sister was adamant she'd done nothing. So anyway, she was told to leave, but my mum never seen her then ever again. Never seen any of the relatives. But my mum couldn't comprehend in her head why they'd done that. She kept saying, why are they doing this? They can have the money. Why are they doing this with your dad? Why do they want to keep him in a care home? She just couldn't comprehend what they'd done, the magnitude of it all. You know, piecing it together, because everything was done behind my mum's back. We'd found out that they were gifting my parents' property, which was worth £250,000. They were gifting that to the younger daughter at an under-market value of £100,000. So all this was deprivation of assets, especially at my mum and dad's age. They're in the mid-80s now. And I said to my mum, did you agree to giving this property to Gillian? She said, no, I haven't agreed to anything. I said, but you're at the meeting. She said, I never heard anything. I never even had my hearing aids or anything. Like I said, my mum's a lip reader. She said, and they kept saying, it doesn't matter what we're doing, we'll discuss it. We'll tell you later, mum, what's happening. So my mum was at a meeting and she didn't know her house was being gifted. It was all done underhanded and behind sort of closed doors. So I think they were expecting mum and dad that pass away and there were quids in, they'll have the bungalow, the £90,000, and there'd be no money left, sort of for wills to be contested. But my mum, when she got her head together and she knew what had gone on, she said, that's it. She made a will then in May 2021. She'd written both of her daughters out. Her son had already died then. And she changed her will, leaving me, you know, as a beneficiary. But as I said, this sister now is contesting my mum's will. But it was just the way they've gone about things and done all this, you know, covertly. It's just been awful. I mean, the 3 week that they took mum living with them, mum said she was putting black bits in her cornflakes. She didn't know what was in her food, and that she was putting oil all over the food. So she said, I'm coming home, I won't come home. And she said, go, you can go. So my stepsister really wanted them out the way, you know, they were more of a burden to her. She'd got what she wanted, her extension and a big high-end kitchen and everything. So anyway, that's when my mum had come home. So I said to my mum, what was she doing? She said she was putting all these black things in my food. She didn't know what was in it. She'd go to work and then I'd scrape it in the bin. I got Dad's medical records, and then every week they were getting an on-call doctor out to Dad, trying to offload him back in the hospital. And that was every week. They were getting somebody at the house. They changed Mum's address from a GP, but they didn't change Dad's address, living there permanently. So I think if one parent had died in my stepsister's house, they wouldn't have correlated the two connections, you see, with both addresses not being changed, because both parents had different GP practices. So I thought that was funny, I'm not changing Dad's GP to her home address. Yeah, it was funny that they'd changed, like I said, both GPs. They had both separate GPs, my parents, but only one of them had their address changed. And I think, like, if one parent had died, but if two had died at her property, then there would have been red flags raised. But all the red flags were being missed by social services. Both my parents were in hospital with injuries. My mum had a broken femur, September the 3rd. She went in hospital. Dad was presented A&E the same day with an head injury or confusion. And then 3 days later, they took him back to A&E and they admitted him for a month. So both my parents spent a month under NHS care with passwords in place, safeguardings against me. And I was like, oh my, they're both in hospital at near enough the same time. Why aren't social services doing anything about this? If it was two children from the same family, they'd have removed the children from the care. But because the two elderly adults, they're just not saying, I think they purposely missed all the red flags, what I'd raised, and medication being removed. They took medication out my parents' home as well. And when I got in and the police had come, the day I'd got in, I said to the police, all my parents' medication's gone. It's usually in here in a basket under the table. So I said, can you go and ask me mum's daughter for the medication? So my sister had opened the boot of a car and shoved all the medication through the window. She possibly was withholding medication for my parents. So the younger daughter found out through my mum's GP that she'd rang my mum's GP about 3 or 4 times, saying to my mum's GP, is it true my mum's in heart failure? Can you confirm my mum's in heart failure? So 3 or 4 times she wanted no conviction, was my mum in heart failure? Why would you'd only know once, and I'd already told her my mum was in heart failure. So she wanted clarity that my mum was in heart failure. So I'd wrote to my mum's GP about 5 times, and he sort of looked at the old picture as sibling rivalry. That was the picture I'd got and the attitude. So I just thought, oh my God, I can't get through to nobody here, what's going on? So anyway, when I got in with my parents, I thought, I've got to get my mum's hip sorted. It's broken. I paid private and the x-ray showed a broken hip. So anyway, we got mum readmitted to Whiston to get this surgery done. So when I'd gone to the surgery with mum, the doctor who my mum's GP was, Dr. Sheikh, he'd only ever seen me with mum, accompanying her on all her appointments for years and years. So anyway, he wanted to speak to me because I'd reported him to the GMC. So anyway, I said, you knew that you'd only seen me, Dr. Sheikh. I said, and you've took one person's word that I was being abusive with my mother, and you never really took it. You should have looked at both sides of the stories, and that person, the granddaughter, was a stranger to you. So anyway, I said, he said, well, they were saying that you was going to put her in a care home. You're saying you've got dementia. So obviously mum was with me. I said, Mum, is this true? Have you said all these things to Dr. Sheikh? She said, I had to say it word for word. She had Lindsay, the granddaughter, had told me and rehearsed me what to say to the doctor, And if I didn't, I would be coming back and putting her and Dad in a care home. So I said, well, Dr. Jacqui, you've been sort of manipulated as well. So I hope that you can learn a lesson from this with the coercion. But he was so apologetic, saying I was sorry and everything. But I believe Mum was being drugged up with codeine then, you know, with the pain. They were, because Mum was walking on a broken hip, I think it was conveniently where they were drugging her with codeine. So when I got in, I had to slowly wean my mum off these painkillers which were just knocking her out. And I had to reduce all them, but I think that was just a way around they could do things with Mum being drugged up. That was another thing. So they told social services I was drugging Mum up. I've seen that in a subject access request. And I thought, my mum didn't take any drugs, powerful sedatives. She only took a regular calcium and blood pressure tablets. She didn't take any sedatives. And it was like the gaslighting is like a confession what they're doing. It was like projecting what they'd done onto me. So anyway, Dr. Jacqui put a letter in and said, your mum didn't take sedatives till October 2021. And it proved, you know, and I'd not even been the doctors saying she'd got dementia. He'd made an admission to that and put it in writing for us. But they were making all these accusations up, you know, and social services wasn't really following them up. I mean, the first thing they should have done was speak to me and saying, look, we've had an allegation. Have you been stealing money from your parents? And that would have been the end of it all, but they never. The social services just rang me saying your mum doesn't want to see me. So I said, but why? Why has this all happened all of a sudden? Decades, my mum's been a friend, my best friend, and all of a sudden she doesn't want to see me. These are all red flags. So I said to the social worker, Paul Moran, I said, if anything happens to either of my parents, you have to relay my message back to the manager that I will hold, telling social services accountable. I said, now relay my message back. I said, because I've got great concerns for my parents' welfare, the way they're being treated, and they're both in hospital with injuries. I said, and people not being able to see them, relatives. I said, all these are red flags, what are being missed. But it just fell on deaf ears with them. They were so grossly failed them. Well, everybody did really. The Office of Public Guardian, they failed them. They ignored all my safeguardings. The Court of Protection failed to protect my dad. Lloyds Bank failed my parents and allowed the money to be drained out of their accounts, even though they wasn't physically well enough to find out what was going on with the bank accounts. They failed them. The GP failed them. The NHS failed them. CQC are reported and raised a safeguarding for Dad. They failed them. So all the services that's supposed to be in place to safeguard elderly and vulnerable are just not there. And like I said, when you raise these red flags, you're made to be the one who's the troublemaker. How dare you question us? And that's how I was made to feel. But I've still carried on. And I've still carried on voicing my concerns and my opinions. Articles have gone in the Light paper and the Mirror. And I'm hoping when we get the probate done, I'm hoping for getting in the papers as well about the elderly abuse through COVID, which apparently skyrocketed these crimes against vulnerable people. That crime had skyrocketed through then. And like I said, hopefully there's no more COVID lockdowns to enable domestic abusers to do this. Yeah, I'm Gillian Broughton and I'm here to tell my story, which is going to go in Jacqui Deevoy's book, which is Murdered by the State. My dad was Brian Davis. He was murdered in a care home on the 1st of November 2022. I'm Gillian Broughton and I'm here to say that my dad was killed in a care home My dad was Brian Thomas Davis, and I'm doing this full story for Richie Brown and Jacqui Deevoy's new documentary, Unseen.